Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Unplugged Woodworkings podcast. So I'm kind of just finishing up this past week. Obviously I've been continuing with the table, so I'm kind of just finishing up with the table. It's been a lot of hard work. Obviously I've done everything from scratch. That's saying the legs have been done from scratch. I've actually made 2 lots of legs. If you listen to the last podcast, I did say I wasn't happy with the design. I basically made the framework. The framework was nearly all done. The legs were done. They were glued up and everything. And I just wasn't happy with the design, so I've literally made like 8 legs. So they were a lot of hard work. Obviously the 2 slabs, they were rough sawn. So I had to flatten them, joint them, and then do it again. I had to do some flattening with those. So within the next few days, I should have the table finished. There's just a few little things to do to it. I haven't really posted a lot of it in the last few days, but I probably will do a little bit of posting over the next few days, probably. So if you want to check that out, you can check it out on Instagram or Facebook. I'll leave links in the description, so you can check that out. So today I just wanted to talk about sharpening. I have like covered sharpening in previous podcasts, but that was more for chisels and planes and such. So today I wanted to go over like a few things that don't really get like discussed a lot, and there isn't like a lot of like videos and such on them. I'm obviously comparing this to chisels and planes, because if you go onto YouTube or even just like social media, or even if you Google it, sharpening, you tend to come up with a lot of like chisel sharpening stuff, planes, and then after that tends to be saws. So I'm not going to cover like the chisels and the saws and the planes today. Well, yeah, you know, you like, so your number 4, your number 5, you know, their mains are pretty much the same. I'm not going to cover them today. So I am going to go over a few things like a card scraper, Auger Bits, router plane. I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail, but obviously I am going to, you know, get into a little bit so you kind of get the grasp of how I do it. And again, this is just how I do it. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong. It might just be something for you to take away and, you know, have a think about and maybe try. You know, if you're trying a traditional way that's kind of not working, or you find awkward, you know, it wouldn't hurt to try another way. So, as I always say, take what's useful and discard the rest. So I'm going to start with a cabinet scraper. So I've got a record number 80 cabinet scraper. I do use this. I wouldn't say a great deal, but I do use it. I'm not saying I don't use it a lot. I'm kind of in between with it, but I'm very grateful I've got one, because it can be a bit of a lifesaver sometimes. Just sometimes when you're getting a lot of tear out, if you use one of these, it's, you know, it pretty much sorts the surface out for you. So I would definitely recommend you get one. You know, if you're doing a lot of like you know, tabletops, you know, wide areas, you know, personally I think it's good to have one. So there's a couple of ways you could do this, and I have just the other day I did experiment a little bit with this. So with the scraper that comes with the cabinet scraper, basically the edge is it's sharpened to a 45 degree, or at least I sharpen it to a 45 degree angle, and then you pretty much just you know, create a hook. You use your burnisher and you create that hook. So how I used to do it, and I have been experimenting a little bit with this. I would just use a file, remove the old hook and just file like a new 45 degree angle on it, make sure it's square, and just basically start creating hook, with a burnisher. So the other, when was it? I think it was last weekish, maybe. I did do this, but instead of using the file like I normally do, I used my sharpening stones. I went through quite quickly as well. I went through an extra coarse, a medium, a fine. Like I said, really quickly, just to see if there was any difference between that and just using a regular file, to see, just to see how the shavings kind of were. Whether this creates a finer edge and it makes it last longer, I don't really know. I don't think it will, but there's always a possibility that it will. So I'm kind of not going to know for a little while. But anyway, so like I said, if I use the file, I create a 45 degree angle. So after I'm happy with that 45 degree angle, this is how I do it now, because obviously I use a lot of low benches. I don't really use I have got a tall bench, but I don't really use it now. So I'll sit on the bench and I'll put my burnisher on the bench, rest it on the bench, kind of clamp it in place with me, or hold it in place with my hand, making contact with the bench, pressure pushing down with my thumb, and I just start taking it backwards, and I start taking the blade itself backwards and forwards. So if you are going to do this, I would recommend you put on some sort of glove. I tend not to do that, but I should really, because it is really easy to cut your hand. So I started about maybe about 50 degrees. Now, bearing in mind the blade or the scraper has been sharpened at 45 degrees, so I started pretty much at a 50 degree, and I just start taking it backwards and forwards, and I slowly work my way up to it may be something like 75 to 80 degrees. I never go the full 90 degrees because that just creates too much of a hook. For me, it does anyway. I don't think you really need to go any more than 75, 80 type of thing. To be honest, it's probably more like 70, I think. Again, I've never really measured. I've never really took the time to kind of measure this sort of angle. Again, a lot of things I do, it's just with my eyes, whether that be sharpening or whether I just be working the wood. If you listen to us, you've heard us talk about this a lot. I do a lot by eye. So, as I said, I do that. I take that up to about 70, 75 degrees. Once I've done that, I lie that flat on the bench. I get my burnisher, and then I just basically fold the steel back over, and then just repeat that process again. Obviously, I do this on both ends because for those that don't know, when you have got one of these scrapers, it's sharpened both ends, so which is quite good, because when one end gets dull, you don't have to sharpen the other end because it's already sharpened. So basically, you just turn the blade round, and you're ready to go again. So you're basically getting like two sharpens in one, kind of, if you like. So that's kind of how I do that. Obviously, I know a lot of people just stick it in the vise. If you've got a tall bench, they'll stick it in the vise and they'll sharpen it like that. Obviously, I've done this in the past, and I'm kind of not too keen on it. I mean, even if I went back to a high bench, which I might do, who knows? But I still think I would sharpen it this way, on the lower bench, the way I've just explained. So I'm going to go straight into a card scraper, and the card scraper is pretty much the same. Kind of, I'll place the burnisher on the bench and hold it in place. making contact with me hand, the bench, and obviously the burnisher, and putting force down. So the only difference kind of with this is that instead of like using any sort of angles, I'll try and keep it like dead straight, like at 90 degrees, and again just going backwards and forwards. If you're starting this, like from fresh, or it's really dull, again I'll use a file. You can do this with sharpening stones and such, but I find it's quicker with the file. So I'll file it, make sure it's straight. Going to be aiming for 90 degrees, and once that's done, again I just take it over the burnisher when I'm making contact with the bench at 90 degrees. I'll go quite fast at first, just get the initial, and then I start putting a bit of pressure on after that. Do both sides, again lie it down on its side, and just basically turn the hook over. So you've got to do this on both sides. Obviously the difference on the cabinet scraper, you're only going to do one side, but since you're creating a hook on both sides of just a normal card scraper, you have got to turn it over. So in total, you're going to be doing like 4 edges. Once that's done, obviously bring it back. Now, what I tend to do at this point is I'll take a couple of passes, and then I'll turn it around and start creating a hook on the other side. As all this is for is just to protect my hand, because once you've like turned the steel back to 90 degrees, if you like, you've got like a bit of a sharp edge. So and as I've said, I don't really use gloves. I probably should for this, and I do recommend like you do it if you're going to do it. So that's the reason why I do that, and then I just repeat the process. 2 to 3 times. I find if you're folding the steel over 2 to 3 times, I think that gives you a pretty good, pretty good hook. You get some really nice shavings with that. So to mention this is something to mention as well. For those of you that don't know, there's probably a lot that do. A lot of the time, you can skip the first part. Basically using the file. So if you're kind of, if you're using your card scraper and it's dull, you can pretty much just put it on its side and fold the steel back to 90 degrees, and then just repeat the process of what I've just said, obviously minus the file. I'm not really sure how many times you can get away with this, after the initial sharpening with the file, because you do have to go back to the file, at some point. I think possibly 3 to 4 times, possibly. You'll obviously, when you're doing it, you'll know when you'll have to do the file. But like I say, you can get away with doing that. I did also do a video for this. I can't remember when I've done it, but it's basically, I think it's only a couple of minute video. I can't remember if I narrated this or not, but obviously I do show the technique, what I'm talking about. So if anyone's confused, there'll be a link in the description to my YouTube channel. Go and check it out if you want to check it out. If you like the video, share the video. It would help us out a lot as well. So I'm going to jump straight to the router plane now. Now, this is probably my least favourite. I really don't like sharpening router planes because they're just awkward. But at the same time, they're a really, really good tool. They're great for, creating tenants and housing joints, things like that. They're really, really good. So, as I said, I don't like sharpening these, and I do find them a little bit awkward. So how I sharpen them, obviously I use me diamond stones or me diamond plates, however you want to say that. And my little setup is similar to Paul Sellers' setup. If anyone's seen it, it's basically I've got four diamond plates, and they are epoxied onto some ply, and that's my setup. So you can't really take it, sharpen it the same way you would sharpen, say, a plain blade or a chisel. So as what I tend to do, I'll turn me little setup like at 90 degrees and basically put it to the edge of the bench and just sharpen going width ways, if that makes sense. So obviously you kind of take it the length of the plates because you've got your it's kind of just the way it is, isn't it? I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, the blades for these it's kind of like an L shape. So, you're a little bit restrictive in the way you sharpen them. But as I said, I just sharpen these with the width, and I work my way all the way down through the grits. And then I finish off with me strop. Again, this can be a little bit problematic with a strop. They're not the easiest things to sharpen, but that's kind of how I do it. To be honest, I haven't really seen a lot of videos of people sharpening these. Is what I do as well. I try to make sure that I take the bevel down a lot, if that makes sense. So I haven't got what's the word I'm looking for here? So I basically haven't got a big heel or a steep bevel. I try to keep that relatively flat, kind of the same way I do with me chisels and with the plane irons. I try to keep that the angle relatively flat because it is quite easy to round the edge of the iron over, which I do. I deliberately do, like, kind of round it. It's like a convex sharpening what I do, rather than a concave. Is that right? Am I saying that the right way? Concave, convex. Basically, when you sharpen on a grinding stone, and you'll have like a hollow grind, if I'm saying that right. I'm not sure I'm explaining myself correctly here, but if you sharpen it the way I'm describing, it kind of I'm getting a little bit muddled up here. I'm not sure. I'm trying to explain, like, basically. Okay, so I had to Google that there, and it is a concave I'm talking about. So I don't do the concave. I do a convex sharpening. So that would be the opposite, where you get like a little bit of a hump. But as I was saying, I do try to keep that minimal, because obviously you don't want a big convex on it. So that's kind of how I sharpen a router plane. Okay, so I'm going to talk about an auger bit next. Again, I haven't seen a lot of videos on these. I don't think it's like very well documented, because they are a little bit awkward. I will say that the larger auger bits are a hell of a lot easier to sharpen than the smaller auger bits. The smaller auger bits, in my opinion, are a bit of a nightmare. I try not to actually use smaller auger bits. 9 out of 10, I've got no need. I mean, obviously I've got drill bits. The drill bits that I've got go up to 10 millimeters. Once they hit 10 millimeters, kind of the next step up is half an inch. Which I would use like my auger bits. Pretty much from half an inch up to 1.25 inches. That's pretty much all the auger bits I've got. So as I said, as when I get to 10mm, I kind of, that's when I switch to the auger bits. So as I said, the larger ones are easier to sharpen. I mean, if you kind of sharpen like a 1/2 inch auger bits, and then you sharpen 1.25 inches, you'll immediately see the difference in ease, if you like. So for anyone that is going to do the sharpening of the auger bit, I would highly recommend that you get an auger bit file. I can't actually remember where I got these from. I remember at the time I struggled to get mine, and I'm situated in the UK, so I'm not too sure what the rest of the world's like. But I'm pretty sure I had to get them from Germany. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember the name of the website, but I'm pretty sure I did have to get them from Germany. I think I got about 3 or 4 of these, and these are like specifically for sharpening auger bits. I mean, you've got 2 sides, and the 2 sides are the kind of the tapered. They kind of remind me a little bit of some like kind of table legs, like coffee table legs, like the tapered at either side. So kind of you've got on one side you've got the two flat surfaces that are tapered. You've got those 2 flat surfaces that have obviously the file cutting portion on, and the 2 edges they're like completely smooth. And the opposite side, you have got the 2 flat surfaces and they're completely smooth, but the 2 edges have got the file cutting section on. And this is basically so you don't, you're not rubbing against, against any other part of the auger bit to damage it. And it's a pretty good design when you think about it, because if you've ever used a file, even if you've used a file for, shaping wood, me personally, I've done it. So when I've been shaping wood and I've been using a file, sometimes the edge of the file has rubbed against another piece of the wood, and it's cut into the wood, and it's obviously I don't want that to happen, and you can do exactly the same with the auger bit. So how I sharpen these, again, I just do these on the low bench. So basically, I'll turn the auger bits onto its head. That'll be the tip part, where the screw part is. And basically, I'll start sharpening the two flat sections first. I don't suppose it matters a great deal. This is just how I do it. I find when I do it this way, I'm better able to see what I'm doing, and I'm better able to judge the angle that you're cutting these at. So I just go backwards and forwards, taking it off the bench and feeling when I've got a burr. I do this to the 2 sides, because obviously you've got the 2 cutting edges on the 2 sides. Sorry, not on the 2 sides. On the. It's hard to describe this actually. Just the 2 cutting edges at the base of the screw section, if that kind of makes sense. So I pretty much sharpen them till I get a burr, and just once I've got that burr, I'll just remove that burr again with the file. Now this is what makes these files so good, because obviously they taper off to the edges, so you are able to get them in. Obviously they were designed for this. They're a really good file. Ironically, I do actually use these files to make a secondary bevel on me saws when I sharpen me rip saw. Because they're actually quite a fine cut. so you can use them and you don't take too much off. So that for anyone that's got one or getting one, you can actually use that. At least I do to put a secondary bevel on the tooth of the saw. So going back to the auger bit, once I've turned that burr over, I just get a scrap piece of wood and remove the burr with that. So after I've done that, you've got the two side pieces. Now these two side pieces are kind of, how would I describe these? These are like two semicircles at either side, and basically as you turn these, just basically cut the wood, the sever the wood itself, to give the cut some cleanness, if you like. So again, with these, you only really want to sharpen the inside of these, and it's the same again. Pretty much, you're just going to turn a burr. I will say, kind of be careful. Don't try to move too much, because if you're going to be sharpening these on a regular basis, if you're like me and you've got these and you're kind of planning on keeping them for a lifetime, you don't really want to be removing too much, of that, because obviously the more you remove, they're going to kind of become redundant because you're not going to have anything else to sharpen. So when I do sharpen these, I try not to turn too much of a burr. Because it is possible just to go like a bit. You can get like a little bit heavy-handed, or you can be using too much of an angle, which I try not to do. I just try to get it right for the angle, so I'm not like removing too much. So I'll do that to the both sides, and then you will be left with a burr, obviously. So you don't really want to take the file on the outside, because if you start filing the outside, you're going to be like removing material, which is going to make the head of the auger bits less than what you wanted. So, for argument's sake, just say you was sharpening a 1 1/4 inch auger bits, that 1 1/4 inch, over time, if you are going to be sharpening the outside, it's going to reduce itself. And I'm not too sure what would happen with this. I'm not too sure if you would create a little bit of a taper, so if you're going through like a deeper piece, it would start jamming. I'm kind of not sure how that would work, but obviously you want to keep the original size. Sometimes I will try to remove this burr with wood. If I can't remove it with wood, because again, if I've been a little bit heavy-handed, and I do it, sometimes my angle is off, and I might, the burr might be a bit too much. In that case, I'll use some wet and dry sandpaper, 400 grit, and I'll basically just pull it. I'll pull the whole auger bit. I'll lie it on a flat surface like the bench, and I'll just pull it. And as I pull it, I twist it, But after every pull, I'll check to see, if I've removed the burr or not. Typically it only takes like 1 or 2 pulls, and you will get it. And because you're using such a fine grade sandpaper like 400 grit, you're going to be removing like a minimal amount of material. It's pretty much going to be negligible. But again, you should try to get rid of the burr with a scrap piece of wood if you can. So that's pretty much that. So a draw knife, I'm using a draw knife a lot more lately. Say that probably this past year, I've really started using a draw knife a lot. If I'm shaping any sort of legs, if I want to make something hexagonally or I've just got to remove a corner, the first thing that pops into my mind is a draw knife. I'll go straight away and I'll grab the draw knife and I'll remove the corner. I've just done it with the legs. I've been making for this dining table, first port of call, set the shave horse up and get the draw knife and remove the corners. The reason I do this is just because it's quick. There's no, you cannot compare the quickness. I mean, if you were to do this with a plane, in my experience, a plane can be a lot. It's just a lot slower because you can only take off so much material with a plane. Where if you're using a draw knife, you can hog quite a lot off. Especially if the grain's pretty straight, which obviously if you're making any sort of legs, you should be shooting for that anyway. So even with killing dried, you can remove a lot of material quite quickly. So as I've said, that's kind of what I shoot for now. Like, it's a first thing. Just to make the process that little bit quicker. So I kind of, when I first started sharpening the draw knives, or my draw knife, I've only got one. So when I first started sharpening that, I was using a couple of old diamond plates what I had lying around. I think one was like an extra fine and one was like a coarse. It was I didn't like it. This is how I've sharpened them for ages, and it's just too much of a faff on. It's like a couple of times I don't know, I just not a fan of it. In essence, or in hindsight rather, is what I could have and should have done. I should have probably mounted these to a piece of timber or like an old scrap piece of wood, and that would have given us something to grab a hold of better. But I still think it would still be awkward. So that's what I've done for a long time. But recently is what I've done. I bought an axe puck. I think that's what you call them, an axe puck. So basically, this is just like a sharpening stone in the shape of a puck, if you like an ice hockey puck. And the one I bought was a Helco Work axe puck. So I managed to sharpen this really quickly, and it's pretty good, if I'm honest. I kind of fault it. When I bought this puck, I was a bit like, no, I'm not really sure this is kind of going to work. Like, I'll rephrase that. I knew it was going to work. I just wasn't sure if it was going to get the tool as sharp as I wanted it. Obviously, when I sharpen anything, whether it's chisels, planes, anything with like a cutting edge, I try to get it razor sharp. That's kind of what I go for. And for me, razor sharp is that there's obviously different grades of razor sharp, obviously, but what I shoot for is to take the hairs off my arm. If I can get something to take the hairs off my arms, I'm more than happy with that, and that's kind of what I shoot for. So I wasn't overly sure if this was going to work, but it did. So basically, I used the puck, and then I used me strop afterwards. And as soon as I took it to my arm, I was taking the hairs off my arm, so it works really well. So to sharpen this is what I've done. I had a hold of one of the handles in my left hand, and I pretty much just squeezed the other handle into kind of like like top belly, if you like, kind of, it's like solar plex area, just to the left of the solar plex area. And I basically just started using the puck in a circular motion. Now, the puck I've got, you can use it wet or dry, but since I use everything wet, I decided to soak this in some water, and yeah, that's how I done that. So I kind of treated it the same way as what I treat me plane irons and me chisel irons. I just basically done the round over, what I was talking about before. So I just worked my way backwards and forwards. Now, this puck, what I've got, it is 120 grit on one side, and then it's 320 on the other side. So obviously you start with 120 grits, and I'm just going backwards and forwards along the edge of the bevel. And as I said, I'm just taking it at different angles, so I'm coming towards myself, and then on the way back away from myself, I'm changing the angle very slightly, and I just keep on doing that. So I've got a nice concave edge. Obviously, again, you don't want to make sure you do want to make sure it's not too much of a concave edge, because that way, it's just going to make it more difficult to use. So that's something to bear in mind, not to have too much of a concave on it. So after I'd done that, after I pretty much got a little bit of a burr on the back side, bearing in mind this draw knife is actually flat. It's not curved. So obviously I know there is some curved ones out there, so I just thought I'd mention that. Same again. I just took the burr off in a circular motion, working towards myself and then away from myself, and I just took the burr off. Once I'd turned the burr roll, I'm not taking it off, but once I turned the burr back, I switched my grip. So basically it was still in the same hand, but rather the bevel was pointing towards me right side when I sharpened it with the puck. But I turned the whole thing over, so the bevel was then pointing towards the left side of myself, and then I just used me leather strop, and just work the leather strop, just kind of pushing on a diagonal. So you start at one end, and as you push it, it's you kind of slide it along in a diagonal motion, so you're covering all of the blade, if that makes sense. And again, you just turn it over and do the opposite side. If there's any burr left on, obviously just run the edge of the blade over some scrap wood or whatever, or the edge of the bench, the corner of the bench, which I tend to do. And as I said before, as soon as I took it to my arm, I was taking hairs off my arms. Don't get us wrong, you'll not get it as sharp, or at least I don't think you'll get it as sharp as what I can get with a chisel or my plane irons, but it's still really, really good. Again, it's pretty much the same process for an axe. So I'm not really going to go into an axe in great detail, because I've kind of just explained it there. Again, the axe, I have got a couple of axes. The axe that you could compare this to would be, it's flat on one side and it's got a bevel on the other side, and it's pretty much just going to be the same, the same sort of process. You're going to be coming backwards and forwards to yourself in a circular motion, or at least that's how I do it, and just remove any burr. from the back end. I mean, this little puck thing would actually be good if you were, if you were going to go out, bush camping or anything, and you thought you might do a little bit of green woodwork, and obviously you could take a couple of tools. You could take, like a small portable saw, your draw knife, an axe, a few things like that. But this would be actually quite handy to take because it's, it's really small. Basically, it would fit in your pocket, this little puck. So that would be really good for things like that. I'm actually quite happy I got this little puck.